So, welcome, Sam. Welcome to the Candlelit Tales Podcast, and Aron. And thank you so much for lending your voice and your story to the podcast with Isis and Hypnos, which was a very cool story. That I think you had.
Very important. Iris, not Isis.
I kept fucking.
Different,
do you know what? I had a mental block
Egyptian
around
goddess.
that because I kept going. No, it's not Iris. It's Isis. No, it's not Isis. It's Iris. And I kept going back and forth between the two of them, and I just got wildly stuck on the wrong one.
Nice.
But yes, Iris and Hypnos, which is very important, and they are very different mythological characters.
Yeah. And come here, Sam. We've known you guys, the Embers Collective, for a while, and to introduce the Embers Collective, the Candlelit Tales kind of podcast group. Now, it's been great to see you guys. In fact, you were the ones who made us kind of get the ass into gear for getting the podcast together, which was great. Oh. And we were over in London a couple of times. Was it twice or once? I can't remember. Me and Ruth.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for anyone who doesn't know us, how you doing? My name's Sam Rixy and I'm from the Embers Collective, and we are situated in a little island off the coast of Ireland called Britain. I don't know if you guys.
It's a good description.
In London.
Nice.
And
so
we make shows like the wonderful people at Candlelit Tales do, but we take stories from around the world and tell original myths as well, set them to live music, and we also will make theatre shows out of them as well. We team up with there's a group called Stumble Trip Theatre, and we make fringe theatre shows with them as well. And I mean, it seemed to make sense that everyone was starting podcasts, and it was Lone and Jenkins actually who pushed us into it, because my inclination, as it is with everything, is, well, how much effort is that going to be on my part? No, I'm not interested. And he was going, come on, the whole fucking world and his wife is starting. Sorry, can I swear?
Oh, God, yeah.
Jesus, yeah. Wouldn't worry about
Thank goodness. The whole world
this is not radio friendly. All of ours are tagged like 18 plus, just in case we feel like throwing a swear word in, you know? It's like, nah, work away.
You've got to check that, haven't you? And he was like, look, everyone's doing it. And we started doing it. And it makes such, it makes sense for the medium. Completely. And it's really fun to change the way you tell a story for a live audience and turning that into a performance for an audio listener.
Yeah. And come here, like I've seen you're both, and you're the actor of the Embers Collective, and I guess Tim Carp is the musician of the Embers, and you I know you link up, and Lonan is the steward and the encyclopedia knowledge. I guess he's also a fantastic storyteller, but I loved seeing kind of similarities between kind of Sorcha and Lonan, and even me and you in terms of the theatricality of telling stories. And I guess it's been a bit of a tough kind of couple of years in the acting theory fiascos that's been going on, but it has, I guess, well, I've certainly found stories to give a huge kind of sense of ownership over the craft of performing in my own space and time, and to be able to do something in the wait and the long wait for the actual live to return. Have you had a bit of a similar connection to that?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm an actor, and traditionally it's not the most stable of career paths, and that's fine. I think the main thing for me is finding something to do in between the acting gigs and not waiting for that permission to be creative. Actors are storytellers, they're writers, and so doing the Embers Collective is one of the ways with which I'm able to exercise those creative juices. I also perform as a comedy character called Jim Clapp, and so I did, well, before the pandemic, I was doing live gigs and had an hour-long one-man show with that stuff, and then I also, during the pandemic, it galvanized me to get this other project that I had in my mind up and running, called Piano Teeth, which is I would say comedy, horror, absurd storytelling podcast, which you can access wherever you want. And I release a monthly episode as a character called Piano Teeth, who has no skin and lives in a bath with a cross-dressing toad drinking bleach.
That's
Amazing.
the creative
with
mind
that,
of Sam Rixy, everyone. That's fantastic.
it's stories that that wouldn't quite work with the Embers Collective that I just wanted to sort of tell. But it's funny what you say about stories empowering you and empowering other people, because I come and go with it constantly where I'm going, oh, just, stupid storyteller, stupid writer. And I don't, because you're so close to it all the time, you forget how magical it can be. And then when I'm sat watching someone just take me away, or I'm sat watching a theatre show or a wonderful film in a cinema, or I'm a storyteller or a comedian, and I go, yes, it is magic. It is literal magic. Like, your words are spells, and I have been transported to somewhere else. And it's funny how during the pandemic in this country, the creative industries were deemed non-essential, and we were told to retrain as this, that, and the other by our delightful government. And actually, more than anything, it just showed how essential we were, because everyone was sat there watching films, listening to podcasts, TV series, and how much people missed live performances.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it really made it very clear how very essential the arts actually is, because like you said, that absence of human connection, that absence of being able to just get together, that's all anyone was doing at home, was watching and listening and consuming arts. And this idea that that it is somehow frivolous or non-essential or superfluous, like you have your bread and butter, and then if all of that is taken care of, maybe you go and do a little dance. That kind of patronizing attitude to the arts of well, it's nice if, but it's the icing on the cake, and really what you need is the cake. No, it's an essential part of fucking humanity.
Well, speaking of essential performances, Sorcha, you're going off to perform in the Ranelagh Arts Festival tonight, aren't you?
This is going to be, yes, get your tickets last week if you hear this on the podcast.
Remember, the last time I performed in the Ranelagh Arts Festival was also with Sam Rixy, Lorna Jenkins, and Tim Carr.
Right.
No way.
Yeah.
We took over a church.
That was a laugh, wasn't it?
Wasn't it great?
That's where the whole Echoes theory came from. That was the show that we called Origin.
We call that Origins.
That was the first time I'd ever been in Ireland.
Was it? Amazing. I remember meeting you guys, and it was yourself and Lonan and Tim, I think, came over that time. Sarah wasn't with you, but we had a whole set of stories, because we dipped into world mythology, which we don't normally do. And we were telling origin stories from around the world, which was very.
We should do that again, We
should do that again.
We should come over to Dublin. I had such a good time, because it was the first time I'd ever been to Ireland, which is shocking because my girlfriend is Irish, not from Dublin, from Cork, and she comes to be
much
saying
better,
superior,
much better.
Yeah, Skibbereen.
Thank God. Oh, what a spot.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And
I knew you were a good egg, Sam. I knew you were a good egg.
Yeah, well, this is it. And so she's from County Kilburn in northwest London. And obviously the whole talk has been with her gran and with herself. It's we're going to go back to Ireland. We're going to go take a tour around all the places, back to the old country and all that. And then I had the good fortune of performing in Dublin. And I was just like, why have I not been to this place before? This is fantastic. Every single pub is full of people that just want to talk to you because you're a human being. And then when they find out you're from somewhere else, that means the conversation just goes on for 20 minutes longer. Oh, mate, it's great. It was a good laugh. It was banging. And then we did a lovely show.
Yeah.
I didn't buy a pint all night. It was amazing. It was so good.
Yeah. You're flaunting your new veganism and healthy style and everything. Everyone was feeling great, drinking Guinness, looking at you going, healthy smug prick.
Yes. that veganism went out the window after a month. I'm not gonna, it was a fad.
We've all been there, man. We've all been there.
Yeah.
Bad vegans. That was a lovely time at the Ranelagh Arts Festival, and we definitely should do it again.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the story that you picked for this podcast. Iris and Hypnos. See, I got it right.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, well, it's, what can I say? It's an ancient Greek myth, and what I love about the ancient Greek myths, which is actually very similar to, well, all mythology, is the personification of nature, of emotions, of feelings. And I came across the bones of the story just in this book of Greek myths I've got, and I was like, I love this. I love this imagery of this lady going down, well, this goddess going down to meet the god of sleep, and his cave surrounded by poppies, and how his children are Phobia and Phantos, and he's the cousin of death. And also the thing that tied it together was a love story. And it's a really beautiful one, because it's someone who wants what is impossible, which is to resurrect the dead and see their lover one last time, which is, it's the most it's the most tragic thing in the world, is to have someone robbed from you too soon. And what is beautiful about that story is, which is what is similar in your story, is that the impossible happens, and time is stopped, or the dead come back, and you're able to make your peace with it. You're able to have your time with it. And that's what is so special about stories, because you can make the impossible happen. Because how many people want that? Is just to see that one person walk through the fucking door one last time. And sadly, it won't. Or it will, if you believe in magic and you believe in stories. And that's why they're so important to tell.
But I think there's something in, you were talking about spells and spell binding. And I always think, the root of the word for spelling as in writing is the same as the root of the word for spelling as in magic spells, because those two things were connected. The act of writing and storytelling is a type of magic. It is a type of magic spell that you can cast. And I think that whole idea of extending time with your loved ones, it's something that story can do. It is a magic that story can make. If you've ever been to a funeral, certainly if you've ever been to a funeral in Ireland, it's all storytelling. It's all telling stories about the lost loved ones and bringing them back in that way and letting them walk through the door again in that way.
Yeah.
In a real kind of practical magic, which is a lot less magical than in the Iris and Hypnos story in one way. But I just think it's a lovely thing.
But it's you can conjure these people back up, and it's like when someone's name is no longer spoken is when they're truly gone, is a saying that I know from England. I'm sure there's something similar, and it's that idea that is also the similarity with your story, is that idea that once something's truly at an end, you can begin again. And we need to come together, and we need to have that ritual. We need to have that moment. We need to have that time together. I found it such an important part of that story was recognizing that need to say goodbye. Otherwise you feel lost, you feel unanchored, you feel detached. There's no closure to it. And so it's a very multi-layered story, and it brings in a lot of just a lot of different things. I mean, there's a real wild, trippy bit in it when she's going down into sleep, because you can lose yourself in these.
This I love. This bit I love because you did it so atmospheric and like so kind of, the panning of your voice coming from different ears, so you really got the sense of kind of weightlessness and kind of falling in a space. The disorientation. Yeah, absolutely. I love that aspect. I gave a little bit of a nod to it in my story, but
no, you really did. And to be like credits where credit's due, that was Tim Karp, who's our sort of producer, musician, and I sent it to him, and he was like, "What do you want for this?" And I went, "Do you know what? To just go to town, mate. Go to town." And yeah, he really did.
He did.
He did. All the way.
Did. I think he's got a new effects software on his laptop.
Yeah, probably.
Play with this.
Yeah, nice.
Amazing.
Nice. Yeah, amazing. I love that. I mean, I love this challenge of having an echo in a story, or having, crossovers, because I think as we've been looking at it on, over the few years, we've constantly said there's only really 7 stories, and that takes a bit of digging. And if you look at it, you can kind of make the argument, like, it's a quest story, it's a adversity story, getting over the evil or attacking the monster, or you'll rattle them off there, so it could probably bit more coherently than me.
There's
But
quest, and there's voyage and return, and there's like
overcoming the monster, and blah,
there's
blah, blah.
the rags to riches. There's a limited number of story pathways that all stories kind of similarly follow, but there's such diversity within that.
It was kind of tricky to find the thing that, like, what was your story about? Ultimately, as hearing it, it's a tragic love story. If I wanted to boil it down to like what are we kind of talking about, with echoes and with kind of other, there's certainly a journey in there, and a voyage kind of in that passage into the other world, and coming back and return. And the return isn't very good, though. They don't end up very much better off. They kind of end up kind of worse off.
I gotta say, I thought it was interesting that you chose the love story aspect to echo, because I think this is one of the interesting things about like this sort of idea that we're playing around with in this series, of like hearing a story and then going, okay, to me, the aspect of this that is the strongest, or the aspect of this that I would like to, reflect back on is this aspect. And like, Greek mythology in some ways is so different to Irish mythology, because the Greek mythology was like, it was well written down. They had a very kind of rationalistic culture at a certain point that was very into like, like the logic of it is so good. Like, here is Hypnos, who is the brother of death, and his children are Phobia and what was the other one? Phantos and Phobia. And like, that all makes sense. That is so fucking logical. And then when you try and transpose the Greek hero or the Greek gods onto like the Irish pantheon of gods or godlike beings, or the Tuatha Dé Danann, good fucking luck.
It just doesn't work.
Like, who's Hera even? We don't have a king and queen god that are straightforward, because they succeed each other and they fight with each other, and there's like, it's so much less hierarchical. Maybe, sure, but then that's Poseidon and Mannanon would be it doesn't map.
Yeah, it doesn't match.
It doesn't map very well.
Hear me out for this broad brushstroke of my take on Irish culture there, but the messiness and the wildness and the seemingly random nature of Irish mythology, I do think, is very suited to the nation.
100%, 100%. I think
it's like a borderline, like dodgy thing as an Englishman to be saying, but I think you're right in the right place.
That's why I said, please allow me to give a broad brushstroke. But it's that, and also it's also the thing of it's the people from somewhere else with the Tuatha Dé Danann now, and it's that idea that like we don't know why we're here, but we're here, so we might as well like make the best of it. And and I think as well that a lot of it is lost in translation. Like there's so much ancient mythology which sadly we'll never hear. There's a whole collection of like English folklore that was destroyed by the church because it was to do with women and like witches and the Celtic lineage, and because it was oral, that dies with the people that tell it. And so it's very patchy, and a lot of it doesn't necessarily make sense. And I think a lot of it, I'll speak for what's known as like a very famous British myth cycle, which is the King Arthur, the Arthurian legends. And that's a Celtic, Brittonic myth cycle. But then you throw in, a bit of Jesus Christ, the Holy Grail, and suddenly we got ourselves a biblical story. Yeah, it's the same with Beowulf, which is the oldest story ever written down in Old English, and that's about Vikings. It's an acknowledgement that the English were from somewhere else, but you throw in the help of Jesus Christ and God, and suddenly you've got a biblical story. And
absolutely.
So they keep trying to do that in myths. for in Ireland as well. They keep on trying to make it a little bit of a Catholic age, but it was the monks who wrote them down. So you're like, yeah, well, fair.
Yes. And I think that's true across the British Isles as well, because although the Romans did arrive in Britain, and they didn't quite make it to Scotland and Ireland.
No,
so there was some writing systems coming in along with them as well, whereas in Ireland we didn't get any until the early Christian monks arrived and started writing stuff down. So there's no kind of unadulterated sources. And then, of course, as you said, like there was so much that was actively destroyed and suppressed.
Absolutely. I'm reading a book at the moment called Witches, Midwives and Nurses, A History of Women Healers. And it's, you know, without hanging too much on the church, because I know it does a lot of good and it has done a lot of good, etc. However, the British Isles are an absolute hodgepodge of cultures, languages, people, tribes, etc. And they were just homogenized under this this doctrine. And it's a really good way of establishing a nation. And what a country was to just keep them. And, you know, we have King Alfred, I guess, to thank for that. But you realize how much is gone. And I'm just reading this, and it's about the women healers of old. And and the knowledge that they had was considered heathen and pagan. And really, they were just using natural plants and
I tell you,
plants, berries.
Yeah.
I tell you, my girlfriend has been getting into mushroom, foraging, and this thing called artist conch is really good for inflammation, concentration, focus. And she went outside in the back garden and she's like, Aaron, you've loads of this artist conch growing. Of course you fucking do. So brewing it up, and I've had it up for the last week, just kind of in a pot, this tea. And you kind of get, it's like, you know, it's the perfect amount of like really, really super sober, but kind of a bit stoned. Like you're so sober, but you can kind of see a part of your brain being a bit stoned. Like, what's going on there? But like, it's more kind of hyper focus and vigilance, and apparently it's good for your immune system. So I'll take it.
I want some of this.
Yeah, it grows on my God. Artist conch mushroom.
I'm sure it grows here as well.
There's a lot of mushrooms that grow on these islands, and they are extremely powerful and potent, a lot of them.
Yeah. And that's what, you know, that's what people were probably whacked out their heads on. Like back in the day, you had these 100%. Fellas painting themselves blue and charging naked at the Roman soldiers.
Yeah.
Some of that mushroom.
Of course they were.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing thing, and we're always talking about it on our podcast as well. It's just like how much is lost, and I do always have to stress, like, it is, unfortunately, you know, history was the way it was, and things happened that we aren't in control of, and that's why we are where we are. But
sure,
it's just so it's just tragic, really.
Well, it's something we talk about a lot as well on our podcast, that like it is both a tragedy and an opportunity, because one of the things that you can do when there's so much that's lost is you can reinvent.
There you go.
Whereas, you know, oral traditions are incredibly conservative. They stay very consistent and they stay very similar. And like the storyteller does not actually have any leeway to change the ending of the story, because the audience knows the story. And so they tend to, like, you'll get examples. I remember seeing a thing, like you'll get examples of like dead languages being preserved in the chorus of a song, because everybody knows the chorus of the song, but the language will be fucking word perfect and syllable perfect, even though nobody remembers what it means anymore.
Have you got any examples of that?
I saw a girl on TikTok describing a song from the Orkneys that was an old trad folk song, where they kept, and it was like a scholar in this old northern tongue that is like fully extinct was talking to a guy on the Orkneys who was like, oh, here's this song that's a nonsense song. And the scholar was like, that's not nonsense. That's fucking old. That's this old dead language that you're singing.
Beautiful.
I can't remember what the song was called, but like, very fucking cool example. I'll try and find the video actually and send it to you, Tom, because it was very cool.
It's kind of transformation. It's kind of amalgamation and being given the leeway to adapt and to change. And like, that's again one of the reasons I love this kind of I'm saying challenge, but I did this series was because, like, okay, first of all, we want to pick a story, and it's a great opportunity just to be free and kind of artistically engaged, to just have any story to try and match it with this already beautifully prepared story and narrative, and then go, okay, what is it that we want to what I want to focus on and bring out, and then I kind of have the openness to kind of adapt and move and change some certain details. For example,
because just to fill in, I'm going to throw it back to you because I want to ask you. I want to move on to you next, Aron. Anyway, but like just to kind of let people know how we structured this. We didn't go to you guys in the Embers and say, "Hey, give us 3 stories on these three themes." We said, "Pick 3, do whatever the fuck you want, give us 3 stories, and then we'll echo them." And like, you know, Aron, I was saying, you know, I think if I had done that story, I might have echoed the journey, rather than the love story. But I do think it's fairly characteristic of the two of us in terms of what we focus on. You're definitely a romantic at heart, and like, I think you're absolutely right in your choice of Boann and the Dagda, because I think it really does echo some of those strong themes in Sam's story. So would you talk a little bit about how you came to that and what the parallels are, and then we can.
Yeah. No, thanks, because my brain was beginning to skip around with all of the things I wanted to say all at once. No, I mean, one of the greatest tragedies of any lover is to lose somebody that you love, and that's definitely in Isis and Hypnos, and her desire then to go underground to find some way back to the love that she had. The other side of that cold, harsh awfulness is being stuck in a relationship that is not good. And that's probably more of a fabrication or a joining of dots that we've found in mythology, or Irish mythology. Nuada of the Silver Arm is a very well kind of named character in a lot of the Lower Goala, or the old stories of the Book Invasions. He comes up quite a lot. Boann is mentioned as his wife.
She's a river goddess. She can be whoever she wants.
Exactly. And she has the invisibility cloak. She falls in love with the Dagda, has this beautiful story about her, and the silver arm of Nuada is mentioned, and she can only be away for 1 day. Again, that's something that's written. And she tells the Dagda she can't go away from that more than 1 day. But I thought the tragedy of losing a lover or losing love in a loving relationship is also so tragic. And how it happens, we don't know. But I thought that it's same but different. It's still heartbreak. It's still loss. And, it still leaves you numb and dead inside. And that kind of her walking around being completely invisible. She just didn't have a place to go, whereas at least Isis did. She knew she had the direction for her journey, and she sought it out. I guess Boann was less premeditative, but she was intuitively following something, and it brought her to the Dagda in the start of spring and the opening up of love and life again. And then the Dagda kind of allowing her fall into that with him was her journey, much like her Isis's journey back to love with her partner that doesn't last very long. And then I realized I realized when I was at the well, I realized when I was telling the story, and I told it all in one go, because I'd been thinking about it for about a week and a half or 2 weeks. And I just realized I needed to get through a load more because it was still on the seasons. Shit. And like, I kind of gathered this pace and this momentum of the time that she got to the well. I was kind of half planning on doing this kind of similar echo to your big, mad, kind of trippy thing. And I just ended up doing like a little bit tip to the hat, and she went down the well, the wisdom, and then okay, and gone, because I don't have time to tell this bit of the story. And I felt like I just wanted to keep it moving, but the story tells you in a bit of a way as well. Your emotions of the day get told, and whatever journey I just needed to get through it, and it was just going through me, and it was just more powerful to get to that end where she just drowns. Yeah. And it's, that's the way the story kind of came out in as much as I had it premeditated and then didn't. So yeah, I guess that answers that question.
I think that's a real thing in the telling of stories as well, is like that they kind of change as we're telling them, and they change depending on the audience that we're telling them to. And that's always kind of, that can be really interesting to tell the same story at different times and be like, oh, I really kind of landed harder on that bit this time. And I didn't, what's going on there? It can be an interesting kind of self-reflective thing almost. So Sam, you having been told, I actually just want to, like, as a theoretical exercise, if we were to throw it back to you to echo Boann and Dagda with a different story that wasn't Iris and Hypnos.
Three Rivers.
Hey.
Three Rivers. It's about these rivers in Devon, and they flow. There's three of them flowing together, and then one of them leaves, and then two become one, and they flow off. And you can track it all the way down to Devon, and it's a story. And I can't ever remember the names of the bloody rivers, and I used to live in Devon, and it's a nightmare. But Lonan tells the story delightfully.
Lovely.
And it's about lovers going off and meeting and drifting apart. And and as I was hearing it, your story, I was like, there's always a link. There's always
what I think is very fun about this is that I think we could nearly make this series infinite.
But this is,
like story tennis, and just like, here's a story, here's a different story, here's a different story, and that they would all fucking link one to the next to the next.
I just wanted to throw it out, like, because I thought as well, because it made me think about my story, where the character of Alakon has lost her husband who she loves, and she becomes static, and that's where the sickness comes in, because she stays still, and that's, we can all relate to that feeling of stagnation is a nightmare. And with your one, it's just this lady, well, this river deity drifting along, and it was gorgeous the way you went through and hearing the sound of the seasons coming in. And it was that for me, you don't really listen to the seasons. I would never think of listening to the seasons, but it's a really beautiful thing to bring in. If you are you're drifting along this flow of life, and hearing them come in. And what I got as well was this like wonderful sense of flowing through, of just flowing through it and going through it. And I know that might not have been the intention there, but what I got from it was you have to keep moving. Like when you go through something, life is still flowing. You have to keep going. And who knows what you're going to find just round the next bank. And for me, it was a case of, so I see my story, Iris and Hypnos, it's about acceptance. Acceptance is the answer to all your problems. Like, you need to accept where you're at. And when you accept where you're at, you can move on to the next thing. And having that love as the root of everything, as it always is with all myth. I think love is, it's love. And it's the fact that even the people way back in ancient Ireland had the same view as the people in ancient Greece, had the same view as the people in ancient Britain, that the gods will stop the world for love. And I think that is just divine. And it got me thinking as well, like this tennis is like you're saying, it's we're reaching through and we're touching each other through a different time and place. And that's what stories do. And you realize with folk tales, they're tales of the folk, of the people. And people are great, no matter what country they're from. I always love the people, hate the government, love the people. And you realise that the people that are in charge of us, that have done these awful things throughout history, are just, that's not the folk, And these tales which people were telling, crowded around fires, sharing whatever little they had and keeping each other warm, entertained and loved through these stories, no matter where they were in the world. They're the folk, that's why they're about, love, joy, rags to riches, someone bettering someone, the meddlings of kings in everyone else's bloody lives and all that stuff. And it's just gorgeous. And we realize, like, we have the, at the end of Iris and Hypnos, Tim Karp does a lovely rendition of the Dubliners.
Sorry, the song, I forgot to mention the beautifully sang song, which I had forgotten to mention. It completely slipped my mind. And it was so evocative. And I think that does it was such a beautiful link up between what live music can do in echoing what's kind of going on for you emotionally. That story then can really challenge the mind and keep it on track and really immerse you in all the details. Where songs are so evocative, they go well together so beautifully. And I think it was just a particularly well matched piece already, and that's why we wanted to have it just blend in.
Because it was as I was putting this story together. And what you said completely resonated with me, which was, these stories, when you tell the story, you're a different person when you tell it again a year later and you go, oh, actually, I'm bringing that bit out. And I remember I was walking along and I was going through a big Dubliners phase and was just listening to a lot of Dubliners. Okay. And I remember hearing Luke Kelly belting out this tune about someone coming all soaked to the skin and wanting to come in and asking his love to wake up, and it just was resonated with the themes of this story so much. And when we do it live, like Carp begins playing as she lets Sakes into her bedroom, he starts beginning the opening melodies, and any people who are into the Dubliners know what's coming next. And it was just like, how this works perfectly. This perfectly matches. And it was just a wonderful piece of synchronicity, serendipity, what have you. The divine forces of storytelling coming through and being like, come this way.
Wonderful moments of inspiration.
Beautiful, beautiful. No, I think, look, that's probably a really nice place to leave it there. So, Sam, do you have anything that you'd like to plug that you haven't already plugged for the Embers or for yourself?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, obviously, please check out the Embers Collective podcast, and we're on Soho Radio as well, which is a independent radio station in London. If you like hearing stories and chat and music, as I'm sure you do if you're listening to the Candlelit Tales. And me personally, there's the Piano Teeth podcast, if you like things a little bit more absurd, dark, scary, and weird. And then also Jim Clapp. I'll be releasing a podcast with that character soon as well. But other than that, the only thing I just want to plug: good, clean living, be well, and please keep engaging with live performances. It is going to save the world. And ignore whatever's going on with the powers that be. Stick with the folk and the folk tales, because we have so much more in common wherever you are in the world.
Yes.
Love it. Well, listen, we'll have the Embers Collective over in Ireland at some stage. As soon as possible. And we
come. Are we allowed in the country yet?
I don't know. People? Yeah, I think the ban is lifted, or have we lifted the ban? I can't remember. We'll smuggle you in a suitcase soon enough.
Yeah.
And we'll get you over. We'll definitely tell some stories. And if not, we'll be tennising, racketing back that
I don't know
story.
I'm now fully into the idea of just story tennis and seeing how long we can keep that. See how long we can keep a volley going.
Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going, man.
Honestly, I'll mention it to Lonan, and I'll ask him about the Three Rivers. Yeah, because you're doing a chat with him at some point, aren't you?
Yeah. Wednesday.
Yeah. Nice one.
We'll link in. We'll think. All right, listen, Sam, absolute pleasure. Best of luck with the Piano Teeth. And everything else.
And you guys, lovely to see you as always. Take care.
You too.
Enjoy the night. Be well.